Hey guys, what's up? It's Law coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And I was going to try a little bit of a different mic positioning, but I don't like how it's looking. So I'm not going to do that. It was a little bit more off axis than what I was doing, but we're just going to do what we've been doing instead. Because I didn't really like how that was looking. So. Guess you can only do so much. Anyways, so I had to do some concentration because last night, for whatever reason, I had to park my car a little bit differently. For some reason, the volume's not. Oh, you know what it could be? I was about to say the volume's not looking super typical, but I'm realizing since it's. Yeah, never mind. I mean, it could be off, but I guess I can't really worry about it too much. But yeah, sorry for the silence. My car was just parked differently in a more unusual way, so I'm not used to dealing with it and had to dedicate some additional concentration to dealing with it. So, yeah. What I was thinking about this morning, and I know I've said it before, but I guess I should actually in advance just train myself now to stop prefacing by, I know I said it before. I know I said it before. Because it's just stupid. I need to just talk because I always do that and then I forget what I'm saying. I just need to be able to talk. I think that's super important. I've noticed it in relationships with other people, in relation to other people, how people act and how people expect to be treated. I really don't find many people who are interested in objectivity or really trying to get down to what the truth actually is. Most people's interactions, they tend to stay away from any type of topic pertaining to truth or objectivity because, well, it causes arguments, it causes problems. People get very angry very quickly. And it usually ends up ruining friendships or relationships. So as a result, people come up with these broad social rules. Never talk about politics, never talk about religion. It's not worth it. It's never, Well, since I was a teenager, I always picked up on that. And I was understandably frustrated because it seemed backwards to me. Those rules and everything about them seemed like that's the thing we have to bring up. Not as an option, but out of necessity. If you look at the world around us and what's going on, these are the topics, these are the things that have to be talked about. Not making a rule that they can't be, but rather they should really be the center of most discussions, is what I thought. And it turns out that while I don't think I was wrong in spirit, I think I'm wrong in the sense of why those topics are avoided. Humans typically do not treat these topics with a cold objectivity. In fact, a human is typically going to treat these topics very emotionally. And that's probably why they can't be conversed about. So I think that was a confusing pill for me to swallow too, is just the nature of others. And I'm going to boil it down to a very simple kind of black and white thesis that most people, when it comes to their social interactions and the way they interpret social scenarios, it comes down to a pretty simple dynamic of dominant or submissive, where they either want to tell others what to do and get enjoyment when another person does what they want, or vice versa. Some people want to be told to do something and feel good and happy when they do something for another. So I think there's those two types of people in the world. And I really think that most social interactions just revolve around that basically completely. I think a lot of people, if they happen to be dominant, they're not really going to care too much about dotting their I's or crossing their T's. They don't really care that much about whether they're right or wrong in an objective sense. They just want to blurt out what they want, and they want somebody to do it. And that is how that archetype will function. And then the other archetype is somebody who is submissive, and they're going to want to listen to other people to try to please people and make them happy. That's where they get their enjoyment from out of social interactions. Now, inherently, I would put a slight bias towards somebody who's submissive as being a little bit wiser, just because usually there's more calculation going on. Although at the same time, somebody who's dominant would also need to have a little bit more calculation because they don't want to be embarrassed due to being wrong. So I guess things could go both ways, but I think when it comes to fairness or abuse, I would still say it is slightly more that a submissive is likely going to be more, again, probably a little bit less biased, a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more likely to know what is objectively true, just because they end up having to try to think and try to cater and try to please the other. I think that that's pretty much a safe assumption. I don't know how much it's by, but the problem is if somebody's dominant, they're not going to be able to listen to reason. If they are stuck in their ways about something, they're going to command what they want, and that's what they're going to want. Whereas somebody who's submissive likely could have their mind changed or, etc. I'm sure this is not the best explanation of these things, but it's kind of the first time I'm striking at it. So bear with me. It's not, however, the main point of what I'm trying to bring up. And I do want to add as a end note that these all do still exist on a spectrum. I know I worded it as a black and white thing in the, right at the start. I was like, I think most social interactions are a simple black and white dynamic. I don't really know why I said it that way. I think maybe what I was trying to do was exaggerate just how simple the dynamic is, but I don't really think it obviously exists on a spectrum. There's a lot of different there's a lot of can I not oh my gosh. Guess we're going to have to go a different way to work. I guess that's what we're going to have to do. Oh, there's a fire. I didn't even see that. Wow. Anyways, it's going to be a long episode. It's going to be a long episode. Very strange, very strange. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing now. I guess I'm going to go the other way, but I'm going to end up getting to work pretty late today, guys. I mean, it's kind of weird too because I got thrown off on I don't think I've ever No, it's not that I've never, but I've never at this time been going this direction. So it's kind of throwing me off. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get to work on time though. That's kind of frustrating. I mean, it's kind of good of all the days that this would happen. The day that I'm going to get gas would probably be my favorite time for sure. So it's in a way it's blessed, but Yeah, that's kind of weird. It's very strange that that would have happened and so recently, because wasn't it just last Friday my way to work got disrupted and then now it's happening again? I just think that's a little bit strange, I guess. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm very thrown off at this point. Very thrown off. Sorry. Cuz I was doing like a pretty deep thing and then yeah, it's saying I could go this way, but I don't really know. I don't really know where this is or where I'm going, but it says I can, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Because I don't think I've ever went this way before, but hopefully this works out. The guy behind me is doing the same thing, so that kind of reassures me that this is a alternate route. So maybe I actually won't. Maybe it'll be more like a few minutes than what I was thinking. So maybe we're in luck, but it's still a bit jarring and draining. But yeah, I assume I guess this could work out. I guess it's useful to know. I guess it's useful to know this way. Anyways, let's try to continue talking about what I wanted to. It could end up being in bits and pieces though, as I'm navigating a different way. Anyways, it obviously exists on a spectrum where whoa. Wow, I was not expecting that. Sorry, there was just something weird. That was really weird. That was really weird. I don't know this way. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's a strange way. I don't like it. Anyways, it obviously does exist on a spectrum. It's not like how can I say it doesn't, or it's black and white, or it's simple? I think what I mean to say is it's a simple axis, but within that axis there would obviously be a lot of variation. It's not just like all super simple. Now I wanted to make that clear because I didn't want to seem like, I was being kind of silly. Yeah, sorry, it's a shame because I mean, if I had known, I probably wouldn't have gotten into such a complex topic if I would have known that. And until I'm hoping I'll end up getting on a highway pretty soon. I think I will. So then things should get back to normal. But for the time being, my apologies. I'm trying to talk about the topic, but it's just too difficult. And then especially that crazy thing that just happened where the road just seemed like really weird out of nowhere. And so just threw me off a lot. It was pretty stressful. So I'm just, again, when I get thrown off, especially when it comes to my routines and things and a bunch of this stuff is just not as it should, it's just not a great situation. So, and I don't know, I really don't know where I am right now. So it's kind of, but yeah, like I said, I mean, once we get on the highway, it should be better. Do I know where I am now? Yes, I do. All right. Well, I guess it's not too big of a deal. All right, we're back to normal. We're back to normal. All right. So, now we can hopefully calm down and then eventually get back to what I was trying to get at this whole time. Sorry for the brief disruption, but it wasn't my fault. That's all I have to say. It wasn't my fault, guys. And yeah, I think that's all there is to it. Anyways, yeah, so it's not, yeah, that's it. That's all there is to my topic I was talking about. That's it. There's nothing else to it. No, it basically, what I want to say is that this is how most social interactions play out. I think most relationships people have with each other, these are the axes that form, the axes. And I just don't really think many people operate outside of that. And I guess to me, it feels like difficult because I don't just fit into that. I'm very much more focused on, well, if one person's right, we should just go with who's ever right. Like it shouldn't be one person gets, one person is just usually dominant. And anytime I've brought this up to people, I think a lot of people, they like to mirror what I'm saying as an idealistic thought. And it is true. What I'm saying is kind of the ideal that, as humans, we can kind of be higher than a lot of these kind of animalistic tendencies. In a way, it's animalistic. That's kind of how it is. We can rise above these tendencies, and as a result, be something higher. We don't have to have one person be the end all be all leader And it's often that sometimes, you get better answers from other people, or it's impossible that one person's always going to have the best idea. And this is, I guess it's a new concept. It's difficult for a lot of people to swallow. And I think we're at the stage where people believe it idealistically. If you ask them what their opinion is, they would agree because it sounds the nicest, it sounds the best. But I think I would say this to somebody, they would agree with me, and then they'd go off and not actually act on it and still kind of do what I'm saying, where when it comes down to it and it comes to social interaction and social relationship construction, they're still just going to fall into one or the other, and it just gets too complicated for people. People are extremely mentally lazy. They're not really conscious of what's even going on. A lot of people are operating on autopilot. And as a result of that, they're not even paying attention to anything around them. I was giving the example yesterday of the trees. As I'm driving, just noticing, trees, and they look pretty cool. Like, it's not like, I don't know, we just ignore them. We just ignore the trees. And it's kind of sad, it's kind of weird that we do that. But it's like, if we do something routine, the routine, it kind of just fades. It doesn't really matter anymore. But when you're a child and you're first seeing it, it matters so much. I'm sorry, I have no idea where I was going with all this. I feel like I was trying to do something pretty big and pretty grand and stringing together a lot of these ideas, but I just kind of lost my train of thought. I mean, it's okay, but I wonder where I was going with that, because I think I probably had some kind of a plan of what I was going to say. I don't. But anyways, yeah, so I think people believe it idealistically, but then they don't actually act on it. I think at the end of the day, there's certain people, they either just want to listen to another person, or they just want to assert themselves. And it's very difficult to find people who are mindful enough to be on the contrary. It's just not a common thing that occurs at all. It's really, I don't see it. I usually, and again, I guess I like to describe myself as being somewhat dynamic in this sense, because I personally like to just appeal to truth, appeal to objectivity, and if I'm right about something, I should be right. And then if I'm wrong about something, I should be wrong, and same goes for the other person. But then there's certain friends where I see how they are, and they're just not even remotely that mindful at all. They are very stern, and they're strict, and if I'm right about something, they really make it a fight because they don't want to have to be wrong. And I've really been in these kind of situations with people, friends, relationships. It happens often. And, there's certain people who are less than others, but I do think we kind of have a problem just in general with arrogance. I think a lot of people as a whole nowadays kind of lean towards the worst of both worlds. And I try to explain this, and I think it's a really important thing to articulate. And a lot of people, I don't even think they understand. Because here's the other thing too. I mean, I've tried explaining this to people before, and they don't even want to really believe it. Like, they're like, well, interactions are interactions, and I don't really want to get into all this like labeling and like because a lot of people do that too. They say they don't want to label things, but a correct label is worth um sorry. The thing I just thought in my head was a correct label is worth 1,000 labels. Is my saying. Just like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, if you mislabel something, that is extremely bad. But if you actually label something accurately and the description is accurate, it's not really judgmental at all. It's actually very helpful. And there is going to be accurate descriptions or interpretations of things. It's not like there's ever really going to be one end all be all in that sense. But yeah, I noticed this a lot. This is noticed a lot. And yeah, I really think this is a prevalent common theme where people will say what their opinion is. They'll say certain things, but then the way they act is much worse than who they say they are. That is how most people operate. And I think it kind of makes sense too, because a lot of times in conversations, you don't really ask a person who they are. I'm like the only one that does that, where I try to ask people, hey, like, what do you do in this situation? What do you do in that situation? It's not even in a crazy way. It's just, I don't know. It's just what I think is interesting. I like to understand people. I like to learn about other people and, how they like this or why they like this or that. But what I come to find out is that most people have no idea. They're never really asked. And so I think they end up just saying something better than who they are as the answer. And then that's it. And then when it comes to reality, once you've actually spent time with them for a couple months, you eventually get the real answer of who they actually are through their actions, not through their words. Now, what I wanted to talk about is the modern flaw with this kind of framework where everybody wants to be the main character. Everybody wants to be dominant. They don't really want to have to submit to somebody else. And I think this ego rush occurs due to technology, because we all grow up with screens that can give us whatever we want. So we're used to getting whatever we want. We're used to not needing to wait or put any kind of patience into things. We get enjoyment very quickly and very easily. And this would only be possible, or this type of reward system would only be possible in the past if either A, you were a dominant person who earned it. So let's say you were dominant and you worked very hard and you got a lot of money. Yeah, you would probably be able to get instant gratification outside of your job, but that would be coming from a place of extreme mental discipline. So, if you're some rich, super successful guy and you work really hard all day and you have a bunch of extra money and you come home and you have a butler, yeah, I mean, you're going to get instant gratification, but it's not like it's undeserved or like you don't, it makes sense. It adds up. It's fair. It computes. And, it's fair, it computes, and so where was I going with this? Yeah, it makes sense. And then in the same sense, maybe a submissive, they wouldn't really get much joy or instant well, I guess a submissive never really gets instant gratification unless I guess they would if their dominant just like gave them a gift for no, yeah, so I guess, oh yeah, well then this does make sense. So if the dominant gave them a gift and it was for like no reason, right? So let's say like, the submissive has been very good for their dominant and just it's been months or whatever, and in general sometimes as a surprise the dominant will treat them to something that is they didn't necessarily deserve or anything, but that's probably a form of this sort of surprise instant gratification that a submissive would get because, again, why wouldn't the dominant just be a little extra generous if the submissive has been so good? You know what I mean? And these kind of archetypes and systems, they worked very well. They obviously had their flaws because, I mean, any kind of thing we know has its flaws, but it really works out, I guess. And it's very simple, and especially for a lot of people, it's just easier to go this route. And you don't really care about right or wrong. You don't really care about objective or true or false, right or wrong. None of that stuff is super important because it just doesn't matter. You're in a good relationship where your personality and their personality, it adds up. It makes sense. And there's no reason to care about, why the sky is blue or why clouds are white or why the grass is green. It just doesn't matter because you're happy and you're not really why would you be thinking about these things if you are content and happy with your existence? There's not really a reason to. And so, if anything, maybe that's sort of a reason why we experience what we experience, because it's kind of us having to push modernity. We have to push and make some kind of human progress. And if it really was as simple as what I'm describing, then yeah, I don't think we would really make that much progress. We wouldn't really move forward. There wouldn't be any new, I don't know, mental kind of next step because you wouldn't you wouldn't need to wonder about these things. But what I'm getting to and what my main point is that within modernity, you get people are constructed with the worst of both worlds, because when it comes to their expectations for relationships as a result of the technology that they've used likely since birth, they get many of these things for free, for nothing. There's just nothing to it. They just get it for nothing. And it's just this whole thing that always goes down. It's always like this. And it is what it is. And of course, this guy isn't even here, so it didn't even matter that I had to detour. It wouldn't have even mattered if I went the longer way. Because the jokers who run this business are just that. They're just a bunch of jokers. So I don't. Okay, well, yeah, I kind of have to move around a little bit just in case, because the pump I pulled up to says out of service now. Sometimes that can kind of be a glitch, but either way, it actually makes more sense if I've pulled around this way. Okay. That one also says out of service. I assume this is the guy. But I hope it's not actually out of service. I guess I'm going to find out cuz he's about to open it. But yeah, it's weird cuz my guess is that some of these say out of service but they don't actually mean it. That's what my guess and assumption is. Cuz it might just fix itself, but I'm not really sure, so that's why I don't really want to unpark my car. Anyways, oh yeah, hopefully I'll remember what I was getting at because I'm getting at the question of modernity and yeah, also I'm a little bit scared to pause the recording because last time I did that I got all confused and I don't know. I just don't want to risk that again, honestly. I just can't believe like I went to one and it was out of service and then the other one also said out of service. But again, I don't know if it's glitched because sometimes it could say that, but it doesn't actually mean it. So we could get stalled. We could just get stalled for no reason. And it's really annoying because I don't want to have to park my car if I don't have to. So it's just weird. I don't like these situations and it's disturbing me. It's really disturbing me. And it's I mean, I don't know. Should I have just parked the car at this point? I don't even I just don't know. I just don't know what I should be doing right now. I guess I could pull around that way just to be safe, but I wonder if that was the other one that said that. Because I'm so tempted to just shift into park, but at this point, I've been waiting for so long. Why should I do that? Because then, like, by the time I actually shifted into park, he's probably going to have activated them. And I keep thinking that's about to happen, and then it's not. So I don't understand what's going on right now. Because usually I feel like it doesn't take him that long when he goes in the store. So I don't understand what's going on, but I don't know. I'm losing patience. No, I'm just gonna. Can't believe that. I mean, I'm just I don't know because I don't want to stop my car because this pump may not work. It's really weird. Yeah, see, I was right. It is fine, even though it said out. Anyways, yeah, I'm not going to pause the recording because I'm scared to do that. So my apologies for the silence, but I will be right back. Yeah, my apologies again. I guess what I should do is do a random test when it doesn't matter about the whole pausing and record. Like, I don't know how the controls work, and I don't know. Last time I did it, it was pretty bad, so I just don't want to have anything crazy happen. That's all. All there is to report. I think I'll make this light. Yep, good. All right, well, that's nice. Anyways, so yeah, what I was about to say is that modernity, I think it basically inverts everything and makes it so that we just get the worst of everything because we're getting the instant gratification, but it's not like we deserve it. We're not deserving to be able to scroll instantly. We didn't do anything to earn that. We didn't do anything to earn the instant gratification. Usually in the past, if you were to have an instant grat, it would be based on something you did. You earned it. You, again, were either whatever your role was in a relationship or your relation to a person, you treated them very well. And so occasionally, in exchange for a chronic effort in good treatment, you would get an occasional instant gratification, maybe. And it would really only be afforded to the best of us, not. It just wasn't even afforded to most humans. I just don't think they really experienced it. And so now you have a situation where from birth you are basically instantly handed. You're instantly handed instant gratification and you didn't even do anything. You didn't do anything to earn it. You haven't made any money. And so imagine what that does to the ego. The ego is going to be extremely inflated. And so as a result of this, you have people who are seriously messing up the way these social dynamics and social relations are typically supposed to work. Because I explained how they're supposed to work, and it is fair within its framework. It is a fair system. It's a nice, fair system, but it's a give and take, and it becomes fair through that give and take. It's not just, you know. So this is the problem: is then people want both of the things. People nowadays are trained to be lazy because they're always given that instant gratification of what they want. So they're lazy and they expect somebody else to come through and give it to them. And then at the same time, though, they're arrogant because they've been served by the technology. So they feel dominant and they don't want to have to submit to anybody else. So you have like lots of people who aren't impressive at all. They haven't really done anything with their lives, but they have very high egos. So there's a fragility in that. There's a discrepancy where you have people who, again, they think they're really high up because of the phone, but if they didn't have a phone to delude themselves, they would realize that their ego is relatively low. But it's with that phone that you can be brought up to a state that you really shouldn't be able to achieve otherwise. And so it gives people a great arrogance who don't deserve it. It gives people this arrogance that is just not warranted at all. You know, they didn't become a millionaire. They're not some special person. And then so there's a fragility in that, because in a real relationship, you typically have to come to terms with these conversations and these concepts. You end up having to come to terms with it. You can't avoid it because it's a real person you're talking to. You can't swipe out of the video. And so what people want is they want to have the privileges of the dominant, but have the laziness of the sub. They want somebody to come in and take care of them, but they also want that same person to lead at the same time. And there's so many people like this now. Typically, they're going to be more privileged people who were privileged enough to maybe have more of a sheltered upbringing, people who don't think or contemplate a lot of this stuff. You know, I think a lot of people in extreme poverty, you kind of get forced to deal with some of these things, or, you know, but I actually think, if anything, it can be the wealthier people who are going to be more blind and more out of touch, because it's just, you know, how are you going to be in touch given if you're like that? You know what I mean? So it's so interesting to think about. I really do think this is it's an important conversation, and yes, I really do think it sums up most of the interpersonal problems that we face. I just think it does. I think that, you know, in general, as a whole, this is the root of the problem, is that you have two people and they're basically, you know, and you have a lot of people like this, actually, they're expecting somebody to be both dominant and submissive to them simultaneously. And then they kind of exist as this numb blob that just doesn't really have to do anything, because that is precisely the state that TikTok would put a person in. It's a zombified like state, and that is just essentially what we're dealing with. And that's what it ends up doing to people, is it makes them both more dominant in a bad sense and then more submissive in a bad sense too. And you end up with a bunch of people who there's no they're fragile. They're shells of who they could be. I mean, these are people who could have a lot of potential, but it just gets all confusing to navigate these things. And then a lot of people, you could even say rightly so, just figure, well, all this is very complicated. Why wouldn't I just end up watching the TikTok anyway and just like forgetting about all this? Like, is this even worth it? Especially in this day and age. I mean, trying to go out and find people who are like this, it's not, it's just like really, I mean, you really have to question these things. I don't know. And that's what I think people end up doing, is they question it. And so that's why it's so easy to just capitulate to how things are and just give in to the short form content and just not really, not really get too into it, right? Because it's just what is the point? What is the worth of it? It's not. For basically most people, it's just not even worth it. I feel like I've just been saying low-key gibberish for a little bit now, so I kind of want to just wrap it up. I'll quit while I'm ahead. Anyways, it's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya schla.